taking the time out of your day to join me as we've got the latest information in and some new models that are running right now, some of the latest evening runs of models that I'm going to be uncovering for you on this big storm that I've got the overview graphic for on screen right now as I start this live discussion. Of course, the origin zone for the major winter storm that is set to cross a lot of the country as we go through the rest of the upcoming weekend to the upcoming weekend is going to be out west, and that's going to be as we go through the overnight hours of tonight on our Wednesday night through Thursday night. And then eventually we'll see our impacts pushing into points eastbound. We're going to see some snowfall up into some of those zones where you see some of the bright blue zone up there into the north central plains. It won't be for everyone. It's going to be a very thin band that sets up, although a lot of the spots in the light blue will probably at least see a brief flurry or two at the minimum, some spots getting more accumulation. And then, of course, the bigger impact out of this storm system that many more people are probably going to be affected by is your severe weather risk. Now, we could certainly see severe weather in some of the zones that are not highlighted in orange or red on your screen right now, but the areas in the orange and red from the Mississippi Valley into points eastbound from Friday and Friday night all the way through around the Sunday and Sunday night time frame are going to have some level of confidence, if not at least low to medium end threats for damaging winds, hail, possibly even some tornadoes getting in the mix. The highest threats are going to be in those reddish shaded colors. Friday into Friday night is going to be in around the Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Mississippi Valley region. Then you can see down into some parts of the Mid-South, we're going to have that highest risk for severe weather. Not to exclude other areas, but these are just the highest risk zones that we're looking at for around the Friday night, and then into Saturday and Saturday night timeframes. By Sunday, some of these severe weather risks with this storm likely getting closer to the East Coast. And I'm going to be breaking all of that down in this live stream in more detail as we jump right into it. But whether you're with me here live on this stream, or if you're watching after, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button if you have not already and you want more updates from me in the future. And of course, more importantly, if you're already subscribed, which I'm sure many of you who are watching this are, make sure you're hitting that like button down below to help this stream get out into the algorithm and maybe hit some more people who are not yet subscribed to the channel and need that weather information. Let's go ahead and jump right on over here to the mid-level pattern map looking 15 to 20,000 feet on up into the atmosphere. I showed this a lot in my videos to give you a general idea of the patterns going on in the atmosphere with anomalous ridges and troughs in the jet stream and how that impacts the storm systems that we're seeing right here down at the surface. And in this case, as we push towards around Thursday into Friday, this setup that you see on screen right here clearly illustrates why we're going to see such a strong storm crossing the country. These oranges and reds around and east of the Mississippi River Valley indicate continued spring-like warmth that is going to be developing and moving all the way from the Gulf Coast up into parts of the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast regions of the U.S., where we're going to be near record-setting high temperatures in a lot of these zones as temperatures soar 15, 20, 25, 30 degrees above normal for this time of the year to finish the week. Coming right into that is this big blue area, a trough where the jet stream is going to be diving down in a very anomalous way. The storm associated with this trough, can't stress this enough, is looking quite potent, and it's not very often you see these deeper green colors ejecting so far out of, say, the western and northwestern United States and getting smack dab into the nation's midsection. We're going to have a near record-setting low-pressure system by March standards making its way out here into places like Nebraska and Kansas, with severe weather developing around and onto its eastern side as it tracks east, and we'll even see an additional low-pressure system that will help it out by the time we go out of Friday into Saturday. You can kind of see that southern piece of energy there. Original piece kind of slides on up towards Canada by Friday into Saturday. A little bit more of that trough continuing to dig down to the south and east, and that's going to help in fueling the severe weather threat into points eastbound as we go into the weekend. Before we get into the specific breakdown for the overall aspects of the storm that we're going to see, I haven't talked about temperatures too much in my most recent videos, so I do want to just give you an idea of how warm temperatures really are leading up to this event as we go across a lot of the United States. The exclusion being with areas in the west, as of course we're going to be watching snow through a lot of those higher elevations into our Thursday, March 13th and Thursday night. Many spots there, as you can see in those bright blue shades through Nevada, Oregon, into some parts of California in the mountains where we could even be near record low temperatures. We're looking at plenty of 20s and 30s in those zones as temperatures will be well below average for March standards, mid-March standards at that, as we go into our Thursday. As we come through the central and eastern United States ahead of the storm, which I'm going to break down again in more detail here in just a minute, look at all these numbers. We have got mid-70s all the way on up here into a lot of these areas I'm circling in northern Kansas, getting through Nebraska, into South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, as well as Iowa. Back down to the south, plenty more 70s and 80s to go around, and even some of these numbers that get close to 90. Yeah, Houston Metroplex, the Austin Metroplex, San Antonio, some of these zones pushing 90, pushing record highs with this anomalous warmth that extends all the way from the Gulf Coast up into the upper Midwest Thursday. Plenty of 70s east into the Ohio Valley and southeast on our Thursday as well. And as we go out of Thursday into Friday, we're going to continue to see the warmth building up ahead of our storm. And remember, I said Friday is going to be your day for severe weather up and down the Mississippi Valley. We're not even going to have a problem getting some isolated severe weather as far north as Minnesota on Friday because of temperatures that will be topping out widespread in the 70s and 80s. Anywhere from Minnesota and Wisconsin all the way back down to places like eastern Texas, parts of Louisiana and Mississippi. As we go out of Friday into Saturday, you can see your warmth pushing east just a little bit as we're going to continue to watch that general trough, that dip in the jet stream sliding east and forcing a cold front eastbound. Still 70s in the Mid-South and Ohio Valley ahead of the severe weather there for Saturday, though. And then by Sunday, the warmest conditions will be pushing much closer directly to the East Coast. And that's why our severe weather threat's going to be forced in that direction while we begin to cool down behind the storm with highs around freezing and into the low to mid-40s at the very highest as you come out of parts of the upper Midwest and then down into the rest of the Midwest. With that being said, and with the temperature discussion in mind, let's go ahead and give you a look at what the storm system resulting from the setup could look like by the time we get into the upcoming finish of the week and into the weekend. Starting off here just as we go through the near term and into our Thursday, March 13th of 2025, where we're already going to begin to see the winds kicking up into the Four Corners region by the end of the day especially, and we're going to be watching a lot of rain and higher elevation snow filling up parts of the west. The Sierras of California have begun to see snow already. It's going to continue coming down and cranking out totals upwards of 2 feet to 3 feet in a lot of those zones by the time this is all said and done through our late Thursday evening and overnight. Snow will be pushing through a lot of the rest of the Intermountain West by the time we get through the late afternoon and evening of our Thursday as well, as this system already begins to get its act together. And from there, it's only going to continue to send snow eastward into the Four Corners, the Central Rockies, by the time we get out of Thursday night and into the early to mid part of our Friday morning. And then here comes that huge trough, that dip in the jet stream and the associated low pressure system. The European model has continued to show a trend that I'm going to talk about some in this stream as well, that has come with this as well as some other guidance. I think by the time we get to the end of our Friday, there's pretty high confidence that we're going to have low pressure bringing a lot of rain showers and gusty winds into some parts of the north central plains. We're going to be watching some areas of high wind even down into Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas through the day Friday, where we do not see a lot of precipitation, if any at all. And then we're going to have the severe weather zone that we're going to have to watch that at least is going to encompass these zones that I'm circling on screen, from southern Minnesota down into some parts of Wisconsin with time, back down to Iowa, Missouri, Illinois. It looks like a very potent severe weather event, especially as you get down towards Missouri and Illinois, with damaging winds, hail. The possibility for some tornadoes is going to get going as a result of this low pressure system. But ironically, this is not the area that necessarily is going to have the most moisture available for severe weather dew points, which usually tend to get into the 60s and 70s for the worst severe weather events, are going to be pushing around 60 in some of these zones, but it's not going to be the craziest moisture you'll ever see, which makes sense given that we're still in a mid-March scenario in a pretty far northern area for this time of the year to get severe weather. But the interesting thing is, models have kind of put a little bit of a cap on whether or not we're going to be seeing severe weather further south into a place like Arkansas and Tennessee. The Euro model still shows some activity, but it's gone a little bit less bullish. The NAM model, a different model that I've been looking at and I might show a little bit later on in the stream, it hasn't been going as bullish with possible activity down further to the south into the late evening and overnight hours of Friday and Friday night. So that's something we're going to have to watch. There's still a very conditional but high ceiling event possible down here into the lower Mississippi Valley as early as Friday into Friday night as a result of the cold front moving through and the most moisture being in these zones, as you will be closer to the Gulf of Mexico and be able to retrieve even more warmth, even more moisture through the day Friday. Either way, here's the general setup we're likely going to be looking at late Friday night into our Saturday morning. Low pressure bringing rain and eventually a little bit of snow with a changeover beginning at least through some parts of central, south, and North Dakota, eventually maybe northern Nebraska getting some light snow flurries overnight Friday night into our Saturday morning with possibly near blizzard conditions possible wherever our winter weather is flying around. Around that time as well, any storms that we saw initiating through Iowa, Missouri, into St. Louis, Missouri, and into some parts of Illinois late Friday will continue to begin progressing to the east into the other parts of the Midwest, where we could see a nocturnal threat in Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, surrounding spots, even into some points eastbound through the nighttime at Friday night and then overnight into our Saturday morning as this system makes its way on through. Now, there's a couple key things to note by the time we get towards around the mid-morning time frame on Saturday. Remember, I talked about how the original piece of energy associated with the upper level trough is going to move its way on up into Canada with time. You can already see that here. Low pressure, the original very strong one in the Central Plains, starting to move on up towards that Canadian border. It's going to quickly make its way through the arrowhead of Minnesota by the end of the day Saturday, while continuing to bring that thin band wherever it sets up. It looks right now like that is having the highest confidence of being somewhere near the eastern Dakotas around that border with Minnesota as of right now for around Saturday morning. We'll continue to have to watch some of this thunderstorm activity along the cold front that this original low brings as it continues to shift up to the north and east as we go through our Saturday morning. So possibly still some isolated severe weather left over from Friday night, continuing into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes by early to mid-morning Saturday. Now we might begin to already see some more activity developing back down towards the lower Mississippi Valley. And, even if we don't see severe weather necessarily during the Friday and Friday night period in places like Louisiana, Mississippi, we're definitely going to have some storms that are likely kicking off by as early as the morning time frame of the daylight hours of our Saturday, as new low pressure is going to kick in and begin moving to the northeast to support the original piece of low pressure. So either way, expect some action. It just might not be in as many rounds as initially thought in some parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. But again, it is still a conditional threat, and you need to be prepared as early as Friday and Friday night down there. Look at what happens by the time we get through the late Saturday time frame, though, as our original low-pressure system is likely going to be pretty much done with a lot of its impacts other than some light to moderate snow wrapping around in some bands into parts of Minnesota and Iowa by the evening time frame. Here comes that secondary low. This one's going to be strong as well. Whenever you have a low-pressure system below 1,000 millibars of pressure, that indicates high strength. This one's going to be pivoting on up into the mid-Mississippi Valley, and as it does so, around and east of where it is where we're going to be watching a severe weather threat. The original low will have already been pulling up moisture. This is going to help in pulling up even more moisture. So we're likely going to be watching a new round of severe weather developing anywhere from Indiana and Ohio back down towards eastern Arkansas, parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, back down to Alabama and the Florida Panhandle as we go through late Saturday into Saturday evening as well. We'll see what happens through the day Saturday, because if the original low had a bunch of training thunderstorm activity over some of these zones, which the European model is certainly indicating at that could help in keeping the atmosphere a little bit more stabilized as we see rain over the same locations consistently through the day. That's something I'll be keeping an eye on. Again, there's a lot of factors that have to come together perfectly for even the strongest of March storms like this one to really produce an extreme severe weather outbreak on multiple days. But it certainly looks like especially the mid-south up into some parts of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys could be watching severe weather continuing as we go through the nighttime Saturday and into, again, the overnight hours of Saturday night into early Sunday. Another nocturnal event possible. We see one Friday night, another one Saturday night possible as that new low tracks on up towards Ohio by this point in time, with all that thunderstorm activity trailing back down to its south. I don't want to discount the flood threat we could see out of a lot of this action as well as it progresses on through. And then I think we start to turn into a little bit more of a weaker setup by the time we get into Sunday. I don't want to call this a non-existent severe weather threat, but it looks more broken. You can just see the greens kind of falling apart a little bit more on this high-resolution model. Sure, we could be watching overnight storms from Saturday night continuing to Sunday that bring more severe weather down here, especially closer to the deep south into the southeast, including Georgia, the Carolinas, the Florida Panhandle. We'll see how much action could fire back up into the afternoon and evening hours of Sunday closer to the Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas as well. For now, it looks like this zone is going to have the highest chance for some severe weather by the time we get through the very late day time frame of Sunday and into the very early part of Monday, up from parts of the Florida Panhandle all the way up to possibly Long Island, New York, gusty winds being the main threat, but maybe even some tornadoes continuing out of this. And then by Monday, at the very latest, probably Monday afternoon, a lot of this activity pushing offshore as that cold front takes its sweet time in getting off the eastern coast of the United States. Before I talk in more detail about the specific impacts, especially the severe weather, I do want to overview one other impact that is going to just be hitting pretty much everybody out of this particular storm and is important for the overview part of this discussion. That is your gusty winds, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of that with your European ensemble guidance here. Blended guidance does a great job of indicating these wind speeds that will be anticipated, and winds are going to be very high across a lot of the front range of the Rockies and then on out into the southern and central plains as the original low tracks on up here into a place like Nebraska into our Friday afternoon. Winds wrapping around like this, and anywhere where you see those greenish turning to the orangish colors, at least 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts expected. Many spots there out of eastern Colorado and New Mexico, and then in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and southern Kansas, expecting widespread 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That will be enough to cause some damage in some cases, and locally higher gusts that could get close to hurricane force there in the New Mexico and Texas, West Texas regions there. Those could be even on the stronger side. Something we're really concerned about as the storm will continue its trek out of the central U.S. and then into points east from there. As we go out of Friday into Saturday, keep in mind those winds will also produce a fire danger in any zones that do not see precipitation Friday. Same goes with where winds continue into Saturday, although it does look like a lot of the wind Saturday will be in areas that will be seeing rain or snow. There's your wraparound wind that could lead to blizzard conditions wherever we see snowfall there in the Dakotas, Nebraska, into Minnesota, and far northwest Iowa. There's your south to north flow generally ahead of it, and the new one that's going to be moving on up. Kind of your two areas of low pressure we'll be seeing by the end of the day Saturday. It's going to be a pretty active time there for those gusty winds. I don't think this will necessarily be damaging for a lot of zones, but a lot of the Midwest back down to the Mid-South looking at least 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts that could certainly blow loose objects around if you don't have those tied down, so keep that in mind. And high-profile vehicles could also be affected by that. Saturday into Sunday, more gusts as you get towards the Mid-Atlantic, and then from there, it looks like the storm will be pretty much done with the wind department overall, although there will be some East Coast breeziness likely by the time we get into our Monday afternoon. With that being said, before I answer any questions from anybody who is with me live on this live stream, keep in mind that if you're watching this after, you can also drop your comments and questions down below in the regular comments section. Let me discuss the severe weather in a little bit more detail here, and I want to do so by flipping over now to my custom graphic here, my ONW severe scale. Been making graphics like this for about a year now, and I've gotten really happy with how these graphics have progressed to become more and more kind of viewer friendly and easy to read. This is level 0 to a level 7 scale, so this is not like the Storm Prediction Center's graphic where it goes from level 0 to level 5. However, I do generally base these graphics off of the Storm Prediction Center's official guidance. Of course, that's the National Weather Service. It's the guidance you want to put the most trust in. Of course, these are the trained professionals that have the most experience in the weather industry. But with that being said, I do put my own touches on it, and I do, of course, have a different level scale. I also do analyze some specific details that I think might differ from the Weather Service and try to kind of point those out in this scale. So here's what I've got for our March 14th, our Friday, and the night time frame of Friday into Friday night. A Mississippi Valley severe weather event is looking likely for that time frame, as I've been mentioning. A fast-moving line, possibly multiple lines, in fact, of dangerous, damaging winds, and some risk for tornadoes will be at the minimum likely for the mid-Mississippi Valley in particular. And even further north into some parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, at least isolated severe weather could be possible there. And then as you get down towards these zones right here that I'm circling, it's a little hard to see. Let me use a thicker shading here with the pen. There you go. This area I'm circling. This is a very conditional area for this time period anyway, for Friday and Friday night. Am I saying that there won't be severe weather at some point late Friday night into Saturday in these zones? I'm not. I'm just saying for the time period from, say, 7 p.m. in the evening Friday to 6 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, which is what this graphic is basically encompassing for these zones' possibility of severe weather. It's a little more uncertain if we're actually going to get severe weather down into these zones, but given the fact that there is a high ceiling, I do have the level 3 to level 4 for scattered to possibly even significant severe weather, even on down into parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. I do not have the orange shading as far south as a graphic like the Storm Prediction Center does, but keep in mind, this right here, this is nothing to play around with. This zone right around Missouri, getting into Illinois and surrounding spots, that's where I have the highest confidence, and all models are showing a damaging wind line with possibly embedded tornadoes or maybe even some supercells out ahead of it that could produce tornadoes, even a hail threat that could develop in these zones. That's very high confidence unless something changes. So especially in the orange and red shaded areas, we have pretty high confidence in the severe weather as you go into the mid-Mississippi Valley. We'll continue to have to watch what could happen out of the threat as we go through the night, Friday night into early Saturday, but it looks like at least some risk for some damaging winds and tornadoes could progress into areas further east as well, especially from that original line as it likely pivots out of some parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois, and then through the rest of those states and into maybe even far southern Minnesota, Wisconsin, over towards Illinois, getting into Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, that kind of thing. So I hope that kind of explains the overall risk graphic and why it looks like it does for our Friday and Friday night. Here's a look at my severe zones graphic for our Saturday and Saturday night, and this graphic highlights areas where I would put certain levels, just like I was just showing for the severe scale. So where I would have a level 2 of 7 on my scale, where I would have a level 3 of 7 already, and a level 4 of 7 if I were forecasting it in detail right now. We're a little bit further away from this event for our Saturday, and that's why I haven't highlighted the specific severe scale graphic just yet. But overall, you can see that I'm highlighting zones from the Ohio Valley back down to the Mid-South to be on high alert. Anywhere from around Saturday morning, especially the further south you go, all the way through the night Saturday night in some of these zones, especially like Louisiana, Mississippi, into Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, back down to Georgia. These zones will be dealing with a lot of probably severe weather, and possibly even in multiple rounds as we go through the day, Saturday and into Saturday night, as a complex setup for scattered to widespread severe weather continues to appear probable for that Saturday and early Sunday time frame, as additional low pressure will support the original one. The biggest overlap in ingredients is likely going to be from the Ohio Valley back down to the Mid-South. That's what this graphic is highlighting. Again, I think you get the point with that. And one other thing I want to show you here, this is some machine learning guidance here. Awesome website that you can access if you look up the Colorado State Machine Learning Probabilities for Severe Weather. This is highlighting a very intense zone for significant severe weather being possible as we get through Saturday and Saturday night, even more so than this particular machine learning guidance is doing for the mid-Mississippi Valley for Friday and Friday night. So while the details are a little bit more uncertain, with that second low helping to feed even more moisture up into this larger scale trough and system, I think we could see a very significant severe weather somewhere down here, especially into a place like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. You can see this guidance even indicating possibly up towards parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, possibly into Saturday night, dangerous severe weather being possible, and even the Appalachians all the way on up into the Ohio, Pennsylvania watching a risk. So this guidance certainly being more bullish, and when you have machine learning guidance that has performed pretty well and did a very good job, in my opinion, in 2024, even though I didn't show it all the time, I definitely used it. When it's showing something this bullish, something you got to pay attention to. But again, right now, these are the areas I have highlighted. There is your Friday and Friday night severe scale risk, as high as a level 5 of 7, where I have that highest confidence in widespread damaging wind and some tornadoes there in the mid-Mississippi Valley. More conditional, of course, in some of the areas further north, and especially down further to the south. And then as we get into our Saturday, I'm already highlighting up to where I think a level 4 of 7 is going to be likely down there as you exit the Tennessee Valley region and head back down into the mid-south. Looking at some of the ingredients that's going to be fueling some of the severe weather as some of this information continues to come into line. Again, it looks like late Friday into our Friday night, we're going to be watching this strong piece of mid to upper level jet stream energy moving right into the mid-Mississippi Valley. You can see how that piece of jet stream energy is strongest as you exit Oklahoma and head into parts of Arkansas and Missouri. So, as you come through these areas and then into the Mississippi Valley, you would only anticipate the severe weather to be highest with the risk in those regions. One thing I mentioned again that's interesting about this setup for the seasonal time frame, it's going to be how much of this moisture you're able to get north up, even with this trough being as strong as it is. You can see here with this European model guidance, even though the threat's more conditional down towards the mid-south, we have more moisture available Friday and Friday night there than we do, say, in Missouri and Illinois. Nonetheless, because the models have more confidence in that storm line in Missouri and Illinois, and the fact that it's going to be driven by such a strong piece of jet stream energy, we're still calling for the level 5 of 7 there as wind fields in the atmosphere. I mean, look at that. These are the lower level jet stream wind fields. They're going to be even stronger and help in supporting possibly even some embedded tornadoes, even in lines of storms. We might not even have to have discrete supercell storms to get tornadoes. And look at how this low level wind field continues into Saturday. Again, this is why I think some of that machine learning guidance is certainly popping off not only a damaging wind risk, but possibly the most significant tornado threat of this entire event for Saturday afternoon and evening. Over into the mid-south, very strong 50 to 60 to even 70 knot low-level winds cranking straight up from the south to the north into the system being expected. And again, if we get any storms to fire into this action, it could certainly cause big problems. And look at this. This is what makes these tornado threats come to life. These winds would be coming from the south to the north in the low levels of the atmosphere. These winds right here cranking in like this are coming from the west to the east as you go up in elevation in the atmosphere. So let me just try and find a blank map so I can just kind of draw on it. Let's just put this on the screen, and there's got to be something better. Okay, let's use this. If you've got the winds coming in from the west in the upper levels of the atmosphere and the mid levels, and then you've got the winds crossing in from the south like this, that creates a natural spinning motion that's going on in the clouds and in the atmosphere, and that's why you get the possibility of twisters. Of course, that could happen over into the Mississippi Valley Friday and Friday night as well, and then again into the Mid-South around Saturday night. And honestly, severe weather could continue into Sunday. I think I might be discounting the threat a little bit too much in my broad overview, as the jet stream energy certainly looks like it could continue to force damaging winds out of any line of storms that gets closer to the East Coast Sunday and Sunday evening. So I'll be continuing to keep you updated on those threats. One last thing before I take a look at what's been going on in the comments section while I've been live here. Here's a look at the forecasted snowfall through this event with the European Ensemble blended guidance. Again, a lot of the action is going to be out west, where you see the Sierras and Cascade regions getting upwards of 1 to 3 feet of snowfall, especially up in the highest elevations. A lot more of the Mountain West, Four Corners, Southwest, all those zones. As you especially get up into those highest elevations, having a pretty decent shot at upwards of 6 to 12 inches of snow. So this is going to be a pretty significant event for snowfall there into the west. And then there's your little sliver of snow, the Dakotas, right on that border with Minnesota. That's where the highest confidence in upwards of 2 to 4 inches of snow, maybe even some spots getting closer to 6 inches, currently is at this point in time. Wow. Just talking nonstop there for like 25 minutes. Thank you, everybody who has been sticking with me on this live stream. Let's see what we've got here in the chat. I first of all want to heart and thank you very much to Brenda for the $10 super chat. That is very much a generous donation, and I appreciate that very much. If you have any comments and questions about this live stream or the weather going on, make sure to drop those below as well there, Brenda. But thanks again. You support a lot of my videos as well with the comments on there. Thanks again for that. Let's see, I'm going to start below that super chat with some of the most recent comments and questions we have on this live stream. Again, if you're watching after, you can also drop your comments and questions below in the regular comments section. But let's see, I'm going to start here with CJ. He says, I'm in Alabama, so scared now. No need to be no need to be scared. That would be terrible if I said that. There is a very much so need to be prepared, but there's not a need to be scared for the severe weather that we could see in Alabama, especially starting maybe as early Saturday morning, but then especially through the day and into the night, Saturday and Saturday night. Again, I'm sure you saw this graphic. I think I saw some comments from you at the beginning of the stream indicating you've been on here for a while. But this blended guidance is going bullish right over Alabama for Saturday and Saturday night. So you're going to have to watch some of this activity that could progress through these zones during that general time frame. Could it have tornadoes? Could it have strong tornadoes? Very much so. That is a possibility with the amount of moisture, instability, lift, all those ingredients going on in the atmosphere that will be in place. But at this time, the best thing you can do in Alabama is not be scared. And just be reviewing your severe weather safety plan. If you don't know what that is, make sure that you're checking weather.gov and looking that up. That's the National Weather Service website. Look up weather.gov, like severe weather safety plan, making sure you know the lowest, most interior room of your home or building, knowing where you're going to be, knowing where your family is going to be in the severe weather event. That's going to be the most critical thing you can do for this over the weekend. Jim Ferguson says, thanks, just saw and heard your forecast for the area in Ohio. Great work you do. Thank you very much. Get a lot of your comments on my videos as well, and I appreciate that support. Let's see, we just had snow last week. Yeah, so many zones that were seeing snow at recent times. Now finally flipping the switch from all that cold air we had all winter and dealing with warmer than average air that's going to be filling up a lot of zones. I have a house there. My brother lives there south of Mobile. Sublime 48 says, yeah, there could be some strong to severe storms there, especially through the day Saturday. So the same things I told CJ apply to you or your brother anyway as well. Damaging severe weather possible down there. Make sure that you are reviewing severe weather safety plans, especially your brother is reviewing those plans for that given time frame. Let's see what we've got here. There's some discussion about snow going on in the live chat anyway. Let's see what else we got. How bad are the storms looking in Illinois? Again, let's look at Illinois here on my severe scale. Obviously, I've got Illinois highlighted in at least a level 3, the far southwestern part of the state on up to a level 5 of 7 on my ONW severe scale, indicating at least scattered and more than likely some bouts of significant severe weather are anticipated. Damaging winds are probably going to be the main threat, and I think some of the gusts there, especially in the orange and red shaded areas on screen around Missouri into Illinois, including the St. Louis region, up into Springfield, Illinois as well. Some of these spots could deal with upwards of 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts in pretty scattered to numerous fashion out of these storms. And while tornado threat will exist, that could be the biggest concern in these zones. And then if we get a even higher end tornado threat, it could be with that conditional threat that develops overnight down into some parts of the lower Mississippi Valley. That's my current take on it right now. That could change, so stay tuned for updates. But that's just something I'm seeing right now. Into Indiana, I see that comment there as well from Nick Lorenz. What are the thoughts on Fort Wayne, Indiana? As you get on up there into the north central part of Louisiana, of Indiana, you can see I've got you highlighted in the yellow, indicating a level 3 of 7 for at least isolated, possibly scattered severe weather Friday and Friday night. And even as we persist into Saturday and Saturday night, there could at least be some severe weather around and then into points, especially southeast of there. I'd be watching out for damaging winds as the main threat there, but isolated tornadoes could get in the mix with any storms we see. And keep in mind the threat for this time frame, even though it says March 14th. When it says March 14th on any of these graphics or March 15th, it includes that day and then that night. So this is Friday and Friday night, so we could see nocturnal severe storms left over from whatever's coming in from the west in a place like Fort Wayne into our Friday night. So you might have to prepare for some of those storms even into our early Saturday morning, maybe some additional rounds near you or southeast of you Saturday afternoon. It'll be a good time to be aware and also have a severe weather plan in places like Illinois and Indiana as well as we finish this week and go into the upcoming weekend. Strange that no one asks what's causing the catastrophic weather events. Yeah, okay, I see some weird conspiracy going on in the comments section. We're going to stay away from that and continue to answer the regular questions that we have on here. I'm going to stay awake in southeast Wisconsin on Friday night. I know it won't be as bad here, but still, yeah, not a bad idea. Of course, make sure you're staying tuned to, weather.gov, your local National Weather Service information. You can always, if you haven't, like a NOAA weather radio, you can listen to that for alerts. Of course, track the radar and free weather radar sites as well. I use Radar Omega, but you can use free ones from like weather.gov. They have their own radar program. Any of those you can use and just kind of track the storms. And, I wouldn't stay up if the storms get past you and then it looks like things are going to be clear. Just make sure you're staying tuned and making sure that, you're keeping an eye on those threats. Or if you do go to sleep, have a way to receive alerts by turning on those emergency notifications on your phone. Logan. Let's see, how does Kilgore, Texas look for tonight? I'm not exactly sure where Kilgore, Texas is. Let me do some quick searching here on my own end to see where that is. I think a lot of the storms that have been going on in Texas with that brief round, I've talked about that precursor event to the main one, that have been going on. Yeah, so through eastern Texas, there's been some storms this evening. Let's see what the current radar is looking like with those storms, if I can jump over to this real quick. Yeah, so there's a line of storms down to the southeast of you there, it looks like, from Kilgore. And that looks like it'll have some gusty winds with it as it pushes to the east. But right now I don't see an immediate threat up there in Kilgore. And I think a lot of the storms in eastern Texas have been underperforming a little bit tonight here with the near-term activity. So it's looking like southeastern Kentucky will be in the high-risk Saturday. I wouldn't say that necessarily, but yeah, certainly at least a medium-level risk for possibly all severe weather hazards, hail, damaging winds, tornadoes. That's something we'll have to watch. So be on the lookout for that. Again, it's going to be mainly Saturday and Saturday night there in Kentucky. Don't have to worry about anything Friday or Friday night, really, in especially eastern Kentucky. I missed this one. Do you think Madison has a higher chance of getting into a hatched or higher risk now? Hatched being the level risk that you can get from the Storm Prediction Center for significant severe weather, like huge hail, extreme damaging winds. I don't think that's necessarily out of the question, especially if that initial little batch of storms that move, well, I don't want to call it little, it's going to be a thin band, but it'll probably be very intense, whatever moves through some parts of Missouri, Iowa, Illinois late on Friday. I would, say right now, up in a place like Wisconsin that you're away from the strongest jet stream energy that's going to feel that damaging wind line. So I don't know if there's going to be significant severe weather up there, but that could be a possibility. And the Storm Prediction Center has been pretty bullish with their outlooks lately, so I wouldn't rule that out. Southeast Mississippi and the timing, Donnie Dickerson says. Yeah, Southeast Mississippi, the timing's mainly going to be on our Saturday. We could see some localized storms late Friday night, but it's mainly going to be through the day Saturday, through a lot of the day where there could be multiple rounds of storms, and I've already got a level 4 of 7 projected on my ONW severe scale for Southeast Mississippi for severe weather March 15th into the night, March 15th into the early part of March 16th. So be on the lookout for some dangerous activity there. The timeline, again, Saturday and Saturday night. Be prepared. Have your severe weather safety plan, as I've discussed, in place in a lot of these zones that I'm highlighting. How bad will it be in Georgia? Georgia's going to be a mainly Saturday event, and we could definitely see some severe storms there, possibly in multiple rounds, especially for the northwestern part of the state. If you live in far southeast Georgia, your best threat will come out of Saturday night into Sunday, but a lot of central and northern Georgia is going to deal with this action Saturday night into even the early part of Sunday as the system kind of slows down. So be prepared and be reviewing your severe weather safety plan there as well. With that being said, that is all the general information that I have for you here. I hope I highlighted everything pretty concisely, which I think I did. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below if you're new to the channel, whether you're watching this with me live or if you're tuning in after. Also, if you have any additional comments and questions, you can always drop those down below with me now, or preferably after the stream now at this point in time. And drop those regular comments down in the comment section if you're just watching this after anyways. But that's all I've got to say. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate, again, Brenda, for that generous $10 donation. That does mean a lot to me. I will see everybody probably in the next update, which will maybe be in the form of another live update or some sort of video or stream as we get into our Thursday. Some sort of brief update I'm anticipating to do on this, of course, as it deserves more updates as we get into the future. I'll be keeping you posted. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, all that fun stuff for the algorithm, and I'll see you right here next time at One Nation Weather.